I'm here with Lauren to talk about Red-Handed Denial. They have a new album coming out in case you didn't know, in case you've been living under a rock or maybe spending some time at the Galapagos Islands. And it comes May 24th on Paid Vacation Records. The name of the record is A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia. It's a mouthful. It's a long one. How's things going with you?
Things are good. Just got back from tour actually a couple days ago.
Oh, I thought you were
We
going to
went on
say I'm just
tour.
back from the Galapagos Islands. I would be like,
I'm
wow,
back from the Galapagos Islands.
you missed a perfect opportunity there for that segue.
I did. I'm sorry.
So, so how was the tour?
It was great. It was long, but we had so much fun. It was so super cool to play our new stuff for people who haven't seen us live for a very long time. So it was a long time coming, and it was really nice to get back out there with the boys. So we had a good time.
So let me start off by on that note, let me start off by asking you this: how much of the live experience of playing, not just playing in front of an audience, but touring with other bands, how much of that has influenced you guys in your own music?
Specifically the live aspect. Obviously when we're writing our songs and recording our songs, we keep a little bit of that in mind. Um, and we think, okay, how is this going to translate when we're playing this on stage? Um, and is it going to sound good from an audience perspective? But so often when I do vocals, I write and record things that are insanely difficult. So then when it's time to rehearse, I'm just like, oh no, I gotta level up. So it's 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 often like a leveling up experience. We write, we record, and then we figure out, okay, how the hell are we gonna play this live? Let's level up and do it.
So when you look at the growth of the band and your own growth as a musician, which one do you feel has been pushing the other? Has the band's growth pushing your own personal growth as an artist, or has your artist growth has influenced the growth of the band?
I think it's both. Obviously, like I have a million projects and I have like YouTube going as well. So I think we all bring in our personal experiences and personal growth to the band, and we just try and make sure that we're doing each band member service. Like, okay, how are we going to best represent every single band member and their own growth um together as a unit? Because obviously, being in a band is hard. You're juggling everyone's schedule, you're juggling everyone's artistic opinions. So, it's challenging, but it's also really rewarding at the end of the day when you hear the end product and then you kind of hear everyone's influences and everyone's input in one, and it's very rewarding.
When you look at the four, I mean, this is the fourth album now coming out. When you look
Hmm.
at the journey that you've taken across all of these four records, do you look back at a specific point in time within that journey as the defining moment of the reason why I'm here today was because of that, instead of maybe taking the other side, which would be like, quitting or going in a different direction? That moment is what inspire you specifically, and then obviously the band by association to be where you guys are releasing this record.
I think there's many points in time that I can kind of pinpoint, because obviously Red-Handed Denial has been around for a hot minute, and basically the band kind of shows my own personal growth as a musician. I mean, I joined the band when I was 17, and I started singing in front of people the day that I auditioned for Red-Handed Denial, and you can hear my growth in every single album and every single recording that we've done. So it's kind of like a scrapbook for for my own growth. But I think every album kind of defines who we were at that time. And we've had many member changes throughout the life of the band. I don't think there's any definitive moment of like, okay, here we are, but there are kind of these little milestones like, hey, we made a rock album with stories of old. We made a super heavy album with Redeemer. We made a very shreddy album or EP with Wanderer. So I think each album shows our evolution in a different way, and I think everything's kind of come to a head with Virtual Dystopia because I think we finally have come to a point where, okay, let's focus on how good can the songs be. Let's focus on songwriting. And we don't care, oh, how heavy does this have to be? How shreddy does this have to be? How many guitar solos do we have to have? How many bleds do we have to have? Like, we just literally did every single song did its own justice with every single song as an individual and not really confine ourselves in any boxes that maybe fans have put us in, but even we as musicians have put us in. So I don't think there's been any moment in time, but I think every album is its own moment and shows our growth as a band and as individual musicians.
You said you joined the band when you were 17, and so you guys
Mhm.
released 4 records in 2 years. That's incredible. Are you doing
I
them
I understand the joke, and that's very kind of you, but I am old. I am no
the
longer a
math,
spring
you know, for
chicken.
a minute there, you were that meme where
I
your
was
face
like,
is and
wait.
all the numbers and all the math stuff is showing up around you.
It's like, wait, I got it. No, that's very kind of you.
Uh,
I wish we did 4 albums in 2 years, but no, it's been a while.
well, just go with that. You don't look a day over 19, so just go with that.
We'll go with it.
Let's just live with that in our minds because that's what really matters is how we feel towards ourselves, not necessarily how other people perceive us. And I think that's an important statement.
Hmm.
So just keep that in your mind. We'll keep you fresh. We'll keep you young.
Keep me
Now,
young.
being a Canadian band from Toronto, does that bring its own baggage with it in terms of challenges and difficulties to break into a scene that maybe if you guys were in New York or LA, it would be a lot easier and a lot different?
Absolutely. We've had so many challenges being a Canadian band, let alone a Canadian metal band. And it's so difficult to break out into the United States specifically. Not so much Europe, because you see a lot of metal bands doing very well in Europe. Um, but the US it has its own like sense of community and sense of locality. And I think if we were in New York or LA or Chicago, like it would have been a different story because we would have had our feet on the ground there from the jump. So the border alone is a physical barrier. It's so difficult for a Canadian band to play shows in the US because there's legalities and visas and gas and the border. It's so just that alone is such a hurdle, but um we've really tried our best to get ourselves here when it's feasible for us. Um but now that especially recently um with like Spotify and all like the tools we can use via the internet, it's gotten a little bit better to close these distance gaps. But um it's difficult to break out into the US show scene and touring scene, even the press scene. I think just press and magazines, they do favor the US bands, so there's just an extra hurdle there, and we've seen it over the years.
And with those hurdles that you have to face as a band, does that maybe motivate you guys to eventually take the plunge and go somewhere else? Not that we want to get rid of you, but at the end of the day, you guys do
Um,
what's best for you and the band.
I think we've always had something to prove, like on many levels, just our band alone. Um, Obviously being, female fronted, that is a barrier. It can be a barrier. Um, I think being a Canadian band is a barrier. Unfortunately to say, we are a very multicultural band as well, and that unfortunately has had some barriers when it comes to the industry and record labels. We have been met with some sexism and some racism in that way. Um, and it's it's difficult, but we want to also break out into the European scene, the UK scene, and Australia, New Zealand. We've had a lot of demand to get ourselves um over there playing shows, and we've always kept in mind like our own wellness. So we'll get there when it's feasible for each individual band member because we obviously want to make sure we're all good. But of course, we want to take it global. We have a lot of fans across the globe that I'm sure would love to see us play live.
You mentioned earlier that when you guys were putting this record together, that you were more concentrating on the songwriting. Let's make the best songs possible. Now, what kind of impact did that have on your vocal approach coming into the recording and laying these tracks down?
Yeah, we actually kind of flip-flopped our songwriting approach. Up until now, you can tell that the songs are very guitar centric. They're very busy, they're very shreddy. So we would often have a bunch of guitar riffs that Chris would write, and I would take them and then decide, okay, hey, how am I gonna best um put vocals on top of these very busy sections. But this time around, we actually started the songs with vocal melodies and usually with the chorus. Because we do like to have our big, strong melodic choruses. So we started with vocal and then built outwards. So obviously the album is much less shreddy in that way, but I think the songs are better because I think they allow everybody to shine and in the best balanced way instead of it just being like guitar riffs with vocals on top.
It's a little bit more of what can I say? A puzzle with all the pieces fitting in the right place versus just one full
Mhm.
picture.
Exactly. And I think the album has the most dynamics that we've ever had. Obviously,
Yeah.
we are a band that doesn't really care about like, oh, you know, what genre we fit into, but um I think a lot of old RHD fans will still be very happy with the album. We might get a little bit of pushback because maybe it's not as heavy as our previous albums, but I think the approach with the vocals and the lyrical content, I think it those bring a different type of heaviness to the subject matter and just the vibe of the songs.
If I can be completely honest with you about the record, I've obviously heard the album. I think this is your best vocal performance with the band. I thought
Thank
you were
you.
super loose, warm, and it felt like natural. Like it almost felt like every song was recorded on one take. Like you went with
Thank
it,
you.
and it had that it had a little bit almost of a live vibe to it vocally. So I thought the album from that perspective is super strong. I didn't mind the fact that it wasn't super heavy because I thought there was heaviness in other ways. If you know what I mean, like
Hmm.
there's other ways to get heaviness in an album. It's not just sound. Like there's other elements that I like. I enjoy the record tremendously. But I have to ask you this: those two instrumental tracks, where did where did that come from? Because, as a record listener, I go from number one to last song, and
Hmm.
those two tracks, while they squeeze perhaps the heaviest song in between them, they don't really necessarily connect with what came before, and they don't necessarily connect with what comes after. They almost feel like two small little islands in the middle of that record.
Hmm.
So, what was the thought process for those two songs?
So this was the first album that Chris took the co-producer helm, and he's been experimenting and working on his like synth work. So obviously the album has a very synth heavy theme and very 80s Vice City type theme. And we noticed like Smokescreen is a very industrial style song. And that's kind of like our center point of the album. So we wanted to hug it with the most like synth wavy industrial interludes, and it kind of it takes the beginning of the album and like lets you know like okay, we're getting into act 2 now. So it kind of feels like its own little sandwich in the middle. Um so yeah, you're right in a way, like we've never done two just like completely synthy like industrial interludes. Like they seem very out of left field for us because we're no strangers to instrumental tracks. Like we have um like we did Wanderer, which was like the end track to the EP, and we've had like very guitar centric instrumental songs, but it's all Chris. Chris went down this like synthy rabbit hole and he made some really cool stuff. One of the tracks, um, driving towards a neon sunset. So that interlude was originally supposed to have vocals on it, but we felt like it was just not quite right. So we instead turned it into an interlude to just like bridge the gap. It's like you have act one, then you have and then smoke screen in the middle, and then the end. So yeah, Chris kind of took the co-producer helm for the first time.
It definitely felt for me, it felt strange, the format,
Hmm.
and those songs felt a little bit, even though, like you said, there is a lot of synths throughout the record, but they're more layered into the sound, and you still in those songs, there's no layering. I mean, it's the synths. There's
Yeah,
there's nowhere to hide them. That's just what the tracks are.
none.
So it felt like, wow, like this is like what's happening here, especially with Smokescreen in the middle. Like I said, to me, is the heaviest song on the record.
Hmm.
So it just felt like a really weird sandwich in the middle of the album. But I enjoyed the record tremendously, and I thought your vocals were like I said, the best that I've heard from you on an album. And when you hear someone say that to you, like that they really enjoyed your vocals, do you look back in the back of your mind is like, well, I appreciate that, but I feel like I could still do better here, or I could still do better there. Do you look at yourself as a musician and as a vocalist from that point of view?
I think just any musician always is seeking ways to be better. So it can be very difficult to just be present and be like, wow, we did that and we're very happy with it. I think it's just the crux of being a musician. We always want to find ways to be better. But it is like obviously thank you for those compliments. Like I always want to make sure that like the most recent thing I've done is hopefully the best thing I've done. And um I think it's just a testament to like us focusing on the vocal melodies and making sure that like okay, is this song in a key that is going to allow Lauren to shine? And we've never really kept that in mind. So um we went into the studio with nothing. I went in with no vocals, no lyrics, just ideas, and we've never done that before, so it was really scary. And I think that allowed us to be loose with it and to not overthink, because I think when we overthink, we overcook, and maybe the best idea was the first idea. So we were very intentional with the process, and we would decide on something and then we would commit and then we would go with it. And looking back on it, I think that allowed us to have our strongest album because we didn't overthink it. And I think everyone kind of allowed themselves to shine in that way. Um, but it's always nice to hear that like the most recent thing is the best thing. So I can't help but take that really well and be really grateful about that.
And I know you just said you're back from touring, but now you have a new record. So does that mean you
Mhm.
guys gonna take a little bit of a break and you're gonna jump back on the wagon, so to speak, and back on the road?
We would like to. We just always want to make sure that it's like the right tour and making sure that we're not just touring for the sake of touring because it is very difficult now. Because everything got super expensive pandemic. But we would love to if the right opportunity comes along, we'll jump back on. Um, but we will definitely love to savor the album release and try and promote it properly in these weird social media times, but we're going to make our best efforts to just like really be grateful and enjoy the album release, which is soon. It's like
Yeah, I mean, it's around
in
the
2 weeks.
corner. Yeah, are you guys planning on doing an album release party or anything like that?
I think we're gonna do some online ones, so maybe on Twitch, maybe on YouTube Live, just kind of have the opportunity for our global fans to come in and enjoy the album. Um, Hopefully we can play some shows with Chris because he did not join us on this US Canada run for health reasons, but we hope to get him on a show when he is able. Um, and hopefully we can make that the official like, okay, we're gonna play the album for you guys. So we would love to do that.
I have to ask you, my last couple of questions for you are not about the band necessarily, but about you. I know you were
Hmm.
part of the Musician Mansion, I think that was the name. I was really happy to see you on that list. I mean, there was like a bunch of great guys there. Nick Nocturnal was there as well. So like it seemed to me like fun times were had. How did that opportunity come along for you?
It was just a simple message on Instagram. Jared hit me up and he was like, "Hey, I'm putting this show together. Are you interested? I'll email you all the details." And I was like, "Yeah, just let me know. I'm available during that time frame." And then he emailed me with like everybody who had already said yes to the show, and I was like, "Yeah, I know a lot of these people and I would love to meet the rest of them." So, it was a good time. I think I think the the camaraderie between everybody was actually the highlight for everyone. Like the show was like the show, but we actually enjoyed just hanging out for a week.
You enjoyed each other's companies.
Yeah, it was great. Everyone was really cool.
Now, my last question, if you could go back in time and talk to a young Lauren, what advice would you have given her now?
Oh my God. I would say you should care less because I think growing up and starting so young and figuring out who I was and how I'm gonna sing and just figuring all that out as I was doing it, I think we're very hard on ourselves and we take things very, very seriously. And I think now looking back on it, like I just it's like water off a duck's back. Like stressing so much over the little things is so pointless because in the end it doesn't matter and it's gonna burn you out and stress you out. So now I've kind of come up with these mental strategies of like anything really out of my control is not really worth me stressing over or you know allowing to get to me personally. And I think just talking to a younger me, it's like, girl, just relax a little bit. Everything's gonna be fine. Like everything will be fine.
Just chill.
Just chill a little bit and you're gonna rock it. Like just you're great.
I totally see where you're coming with that because obviously, if I could go back and talk to the younger me, I would probably say the same thing. One of the great things about getting older is that you realize what's really important in your life,
Exactly.
and you realize that a lot of the things that you thought were important, or at least that you worried about, turns out to be not important at all. So
Exactly.
like just narrow your vision a little bit more and concentrate on the things that you can change, that you can impact. It really takes a huge stress off of you, and it takes this huge weight off of your shoulders, because when in certain parts of your life, you always have this feeling like everything is super critical, everything is the end of the
Yeah.
world, like either be a relationship that didn't work out, or your car that doesn't start in the morning, or the boss that you hate. Everything is like the end of the world. It's not.
Hmm.
It's not.
It's
This
not.
it's
And
really
I
not.
it's really not. And I think at the end of the day, like we stress over, our art, which is valid. Like our art's very important to us, but in the end it's about the people. Like are the relationships that we make along the way, like those are so important. And I think losing sight of like the people we work with and their well-being as well and how we treat people, I think that is in the end the most important thing. And I think everything else comes secondary. So just holding those connections and those friendships close and nurturing them, everything else comes second. You don't have to be an asshole about a project, about this little like, oh, this drum fill sucks, like just take a step back and like realize, okay, what is actually important, and it's the people in the at the end of the day.
Man, you sound like me. I'm at that point in my life, like, I even find myself these days going to metal shows. I almost go more to hang out with my friends or to hang out with a band or, like, for the personal connections than I do for the music itself. The music is almost becoming secondary. Like, it's almost the background or the excuse to just really spend time with the people that I wanna spend time with.
And it's true, like, when just coming off this tour, like, we were obviously, when you're supporting a headliner, you hope that they're kind and nice, and Unprocessed are some of the nicest people that we've ever toured with. And I don't say that lightly. Truthfully, they were wonderful, and that makes their music better. Like, knowing that they're good people and knowing that you got along and just hanging out in those memories that you make, the music got better. And it's like it's about the people at the end of the day. And that's really cool.
That's the memories that you
Yeah.
stay with for sure. 100%. My son was actually at the Toronto show that you guys played at the Velvet Underground. I didn't make it,
Hell
but
yeah.
I hope to see you guys soon. The last time I saw you guys was in Mississauga. I don't know if you remember. It was like, I don't
Oh,
know, 2012 or something like that. Like,
oh wow.
yeah, yeah,
I was a baby. That was
yeah,
like over 10 years ago.
yeah. You were like 18 at the time or something like that, I think. Around that probably.
So
Uh,
young.
or well, now I'm dating myself and you. I shouldn't have said that. Okay, anyways, so it's been a long time. I hope you guys find the success that you deserve with this record. And I hope you guys continue to do what you're doing with all the difficulties and challenges that come with it. I've met you guys in person, some of the nicest people I've ever met. So I have nothing
Aw.
but good wishes for all of you. And just wishing you happiness is all I can say.
Thank you.
And for the people looking at picking up the record, I'm gonna put in the description of the video a link for the pre-order so people can go and grab it and stream it, do whatever people do these days. Comes out May 24th, is just around the corner, so you definitely don't want to miss it. And if you get a chance to see these guys live, go see them. They're amazing and they're great people. I have a hat somewhere behind me signed by the whole band, by the way.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you again, and I hope you guys are doing well. And yeah, thank you guys for watching us chat a little bit. And
Yeah,
hopefully you enjoy the record.
this was a pleasure, and I'm sure you're gonna get great feedback from the album. Great vocal performance. Thank you, Lauren. All the best.
Thank you.